Former Chicago Schools Chief Paul Vallas has endorsed Gery Chico, his former colleague in the race for mayor of Chicago.
And Paul Vallas is here with us to discuss why you did it. Good morning, Paul. Good to see you.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're known as a successful school reformer. Is that part of the reason? Why is this backing Gery Chico in the race for mayor?
Well, you know, this election should be about the individual most qualified to be mayor, and Gery Chico has served in many executive positions, literally management positions for the city during its most prosperous period, and so he clearly is the most qualified. I had the pleasure of working for Gery as CEO of the Chicago Public Schools when Gery was president, and if you remember, we inherited a 5-year, $1.2 billion projected budget deficit, and we left the schools with $330 million in the bank. $3 billion in new school construction, 6 years of improved test scores, charter schools, school choice. I mean, that was Gery Chico. Or for that matter, when I was city budget director in the 90s, when the mayor did a major shakeup at City Hall, we balanced budgets. We put over 13,000 police officers on the street. We resurfaced 70% of the city streets and balanced the budget without raising property taxes. Again, that was Gery Chico's leadership. So there is no, if this election is going to be about who is ready on day one to be mayor of the city, it's Gery Chico.
Last week, Chico took a bit of a swipe at the city schools, which angered the mayor. He suggested the momentum that had been established back in the 90s when you two were working on it has faded a bit. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it has faded. I mean, look, they've got huge deficits. The test scores are stagnant. Had it not been for the state coming out with an easier exam, there's a question of whether or not there would have been real substantive growth at the elementary school level. The high school test scores, well, you know, you've been reporting about it. Yes, momentum has slowed down significantly, particularly in the past 2 years. They've got huge deficits. You know, we left them with a $330 million surplus in terms of reserves, 6 years of improved test scores. Gery's absolutely right. You know, Gery's always going to be a little more delicate, but I'm not. And what Gery has proposed, I think, is designed to get the schools jump-started again. He wants more choice. He actually supports vouchers, which is very controversial in this city for someone to embrace that. He wants, you know, an end to seniority. He wants promotions and hiring and retention based on qualifications. He wants to bring best practices to schools. He wants to bring technology into the classroom so you're less dependent on individuals, because with technology you can provide the same professional development, the same supplemental education services for about 20–25% of the cost. So he wants to jumpstart the schools, and I think, and he wants to dismantle the central office and restructure it as a school improvement office. And I think all the things that he's talking about will, in fact, get the schools back on track.
We have to talk about, you're known as a successful school reformer, and there's this film out, Waiting for Superman, which is, you know, generating so much talk about education, and urban education in particular. It talks about, you know, it's very critical of teachers' unions. Right. It's also talking about the success of charter schools. Are you a proponent of what this film is talking about, may make success stories elsewhere?
The director spent about 2 or 3 days in New Orleans. I did extensive interviews with him, and we were surprised that New Orleans was not featured in the film. I think one of the reasons we weren't featured is because we refused to basically bash teachers. I mean, we were able to work with the teachers union effectively. We were able to get them to make accommodations, both not only in Chicago but also in Philadelphia. So I think while it certainly raises relevant issues, I think there was a degree of subjectivity in it, and for example, the failure to identify traditional schools that are performing extraordinarily well. You know, I just think that the film could have been more balanced. The issues were raised were right issues to raise, but I think it should have been raised in a more balanced approach. And I'm a strong supporter of charters and school choice, but the bottom line is I'm not going to go out there bashing teachers.
Before you go, real quickly, if Chico is successful and becomes mayor of Chicago, would you consider returning here for a role in his administration?
You know, probably not, because right now, as you know, I'm finishing my work in New Orleans, and I spent considerable time in Haiti, and I spent some time in Chile after the earthquake too, and I'm probably going to continue to work on those projects at least for a couple more years. That Haiti is a country that should not be abandoned. It's time for those international organizations to begin to live up to the promises they've made. You know, maybe at some future date, but I'm certainly not looking at coming in and taking a job with Gery.
The door's not in though, I think I heard.
You know,
and you're keeping a residence here in Chicago, which, as we know, is very important.
That's critical.
Well, in Palos Heights.
Oh, okay. So this is the Chicago area.
That's right, Chicago area.
All right.
Paul, great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being on the show today.